Good morning, historians! You were wondering how foreign policy in the era of good feelings from 1816 to 1824 promotes nationalism or sectionalism? Boy, do I have an answer for you. Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819, also known as the Florida Purchase Treaty, was a treaty between the United States and Spain, in which the United States got the Florida Territory for $5 million, as well as settled land border disputes with Spain.
The Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819 actually all started with Andrew Jackson. He entered Florida first for the Seminole War, but ended up far extending his orders and actually ended up killing a British officer. Unfortunately, the United States government couldn't actually do much about this because he was revered as a war hero. That was because of his fight in New Orleans during the War of 1812. They needed the public support and they couldn't just arrest a war hero. That would be completely ridiculous.
Just keep going, right?
Yep.
So the Convention of 1818 involved the countries of the U.S. and Great Britain. It was one of their final agreements towards settling the dispute between the land territories. So they agreed to the 49th parallel, and that would be the dividing line between the two nations. This was going to turn out to be one of the longest unfortified borders in the world, which means that the territorial divide between them would greatly rely on each respective country staying true to those borders. They'll go along.
While the Monroe Doctrine gets its namesake from the United States President at the time it was put into effect, it was largely written and composed by the Secretary of State John Quincy Adams. And the Monroe Doctrine was an attempt to discourage European imperialism and colonialism. And so essentially what the doctrine did is it said that any European powers that would try to colonize any territory of the Americas were no longer in good standing with the United States. It was actually enforced by the British. The British did not want any foreign powers or nations from Europe colonizing the New World and then inhibiting trade with the United States. So they used their naval power because the United States lacked sufficient capability to enforce the Monroe Doctrine. And this was largely due in part to Democratic Republican policies of the small military and small navy that were still in place from before the War of 1812 and Jefferson's presidency. Back in the early 19th century, America had its disputes over foreign policy. In that period, the administration in power attempted to prioritize the United States' interests over other countries. In our society today, the U.S. continues to embrace nationalistic ideas, with the recent rebranding of NAFTA as the USMCA, or aptly named the United States-Mexico-Canadian Agreement. This newly minted agreement has yet to be ratified, but is an American-first trade deal. With the repeal of NAFTA, the market of the U.S. will be incentivized to purchase domestic goods because of the new tariffs on international products. These will raise the prices of imported goods on the U.S. domestic market.